Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Ben Crow, Ventures Manager at VentureCrowd, and today I'm joined by Thibault and Aria, from co-founders of Bazaa, Australia's first fully integrated platform for sustainable interiors. Launched in 2024, Bazaa is capturing the rising untapped demand for unique secondhand and sustainable furniture. Offering a curated selection of vintage, antique, and slow-made pieces, the platform simplifies the buying process with integrated logistics and innovative technology. With over 30,000 monthly users, Bazaa has quickly established itself as a leader in a fast-growing market. I'm looking forward to finding out more about Bazaa today, and would like to welcome both Thibault and Aria.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Ben.
So to kick things off, it would be great to find out a bit more about you both and your backgrounds as founders.
Sounds good. Tib, do you want to go first?
After you, Aya.
All right. So my background is in resale. I've been operating in the space for quite a while. So obviously Bazaa, being in the sustainable furniture world is, a passion for me. So prior to Bazaa, I was the director for Australia and APAC for Depop. And so Depop is essentially one of the biggest fashion resale marketplaces, particularly focused on Gen Z. And so essentially it allows people to, buy and sell clothing from each other. I think, when I joined Depop, we were sort of a lot smaller than they are now. And so my role was really focused on growth, so both supply and demand side. So thinking about all of those marketplace dynamics and how do we really, grow our sellers, make sure the product is really aligning with what we need, the features, and how are we kind of bringing those buyers in to match that demand and supply dynamic. And then, part of my role was looking at, expansion opportunities, revenue, new revenue sources. And so one of those areas was international expansion. And I was living in London at the time, but I missed home. So decided to come back over here where we were seeing, enormous and phenomenal growth without really a lot of investment in the market. And I think that was really a testament to the resale market and how much that was just, we had just seen this big boom. At the time, it was also COVID was happening. And so everyone was kind of shopping online. People were spending more time at home. People were really trying to understand and starting to get more of a feel for, sustainability and how that's impacting, our daily lives every day. And so, yeah, being able to kind of lead that launch and that growth here was an amazing experience. So Depop actually exited in 2021, so through an acquisition. So Etsy acquired Depop for $1.6 billion US, which was an amazing exit and an amazing milestone. And so, yeah, I think throughout that journey, I really sort of started to understand and realize what it was that I was, passionate about, taking all the things that I sort of learned and was able to sort of achieve in that growth period, and really wanted to do my own thing and apply all of that to a market and industry that made sense back home in Australia. So yeah, and then prior to Depop, my roles were very much, so I was a strategy consultant working, primarily for consumer markets in both Sydney and London. So I'll let Tim do an intro.
Yeah, thank you, Aya. And yeah, my name is Thibault Henry. So I arrived in Australia 8 years ago as an entrepreneur. I opened my first business in last mile logistics that was called Balto. And Balto is basically one of the biggest suppliers for companies like HelloFresh, YouFoods, Motherspoon, and basically scaled with them and allowed them to really grow through the country. And I started with just 1 or 2 vans, trucks, and a couple of drivers, helping those guys deliver their food boxes, and ended up having close to 100 drivers and doing tens of thousands of deliveries weekly for those companies. So it was a super exciting journey, allowed me to really understand how entrepreneurship works in Australia and the dynamics, and also just, understand how to run a proper business with heavy ups, and grew it sustainably. So we're pretty much profitable day one, and our profits allowed us to just invest in the future, in technology, in operations, etc. And after only 3 years, we sold the business to a competitor that I then helped grow and establish their business for a year before stopping. After that, I launched another business in last mile that was called Volley. And Volley was what we call quick commerce. So the idea was to deliver groceries in 10, 15 minutes all over Sydney, a bit like Milk Run was doing at the time as well. And that was an incredible journey. We managed to raise $18 million seed round from Sequoia Capital, which is one of the biggest VCs in the world. And we're lucky and proud to be the biggest seed round ever invested in Australia. And the goal was to scale the business as quickly as possible all over the country. And in less than a year, we grew from just myself and my co-founder to a team of 200 people, opening close to 10 dark stores back in the day. And the goal was to raise again, and we needed a lot of capital to bring Volley to basically the mass market and hit some really strong unit economics. And those unit economics would only work at scale. But then, because of the inflation and everything, the amount of money we needed to raise was very hard to raise. So we decided to stop the operations in Australia a bit less than 2 years ago. And after that, I stopped for a while, started thinking of what I wanted to do, keep my knowledge in logistics that I really love, and tackle another problem that I always thought was a big one, which is buying secondhand vintage furniture in Australia. I think there's a lot of amazing pieces out there, but it's a very fragmented experience, and there was a big opportunity. So actually, a common friend from Aria and I introduced us as soon as we both had that same idea, and we connected.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That's a great story. So thank you so much for sharing the both of those. I guess from here, like, can you tell me a little bit more around Bazaa, like what the problem that it's solving and how you plan on solving it?
Yeah, for sure. I might take this one. So, I've just talked a little bit about resale and my background. So I'd like to think I'm, fairly familiar with the waste problem and the data around that. But I think, the reality is that it doesn't make it any less scary or sad, really, when you look at the hard data. And so, something like 85% of the stuff that we throw out on our curbside ends up in landfill, just thrown out. And while there's, limited data around it, Australia, I think, is the second worst offender for textile waste in terms of, how much we actually discard. And when you think about, size and scale, that's a scary number. And so I think people try to do the right thing when, you talk about op shops, you talk about people trying to, send their stuff to the charity stores. And I think it's a positive step, but the reality is that a lot of that stuff isn't resold, can't be resold, and ends up then as waste. And so, yeah, it's unfortunately the situation that we're in. But I think the positive side, alongside those kind of grim numbers, there's actually been a really positive trend. And so Australians are starting to choose to reuse and sell and, reupholster furniture and really look for those kind of sustainable pieces. I think a lot of that also came about at, a time when during COVID, we were at home, our spaces became an extension of ourselves and our brand. And so we really started looking for not just sustainable, but unique stuff. It became, I want to tell a story about the piece I have and where it came from. And I think both of those trends coming together has meant that, the demand for secondhand furniture and sustainable furniture is just growing so fast. I guess the flip side of that is the solutions to be able to tap into that demand are actually really limited at the moment. And so, right now, I don't know if you've tried to buy or sell secondhand furniture, but I have, and it's not easy, and it's actually quite a hassle. So the market is heavily fragmented when you think about, you're either going on Facebook and you're spending hours trying to filter through things that, are either located around you or near you, or you're opening, something like 50 tabs on your laptop, looking at, different stores and trying to compare all of them. And so what ends up happening as a buyer and seller, you're actually quite restricted in terms of access to these amazing pieces that are out there. And then you've got the issue of shipping. So at the moment, shipping is slow, it's expensive. The reality is often buyers have to organize their own shipping. So, I have to call a courier, I have to call an Airtasker, I have to hire a van and go pick it up myself. Or I have to pay a lot of money to be able to do that. And so, you know, I think that's a big hurdle. And what that also comes with is, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the news, but scams and like the negotiations and the really low offers. And the reality is that that just ends up taking so much time that it almost becomes frustrating to try and buy and sell secondhand furniture at the moment. And I guess, yeah, that's where Bazaa comes in. So we're really trying to build this kind of platform that's the future for sustainable interiors. And so we want to make it easy. We want to make it safe. We want to make it, you know, really simple for you to be able to buy and sell, whether it be secondhand, slow made, antique, vintage furniture and homewares. And the whole idea is that buyers sort of get access to thousands of those products all in one place. And then we handle all of those logistics for you so that, you know, getting your piece delivered to your home or your space is actually really simple and transparent. So yeah, that's kind of Bazaa in a nutshell.
Awesome. That's great. And I guess that the next question leads on from that would probably just be like, how big's the market opportunity?
Yeah, well, it's actually pretty big. I mean, Australians are big spenders when it comes to home decor and furniture. So the market is sitting at around, just for furniture, $27 billion in 2024, and expected to grow quite a bit and reach 36 to 37 billion dollars by 2028. And that's furniture only. And if you take resale, the growth is actually 2 times faster. It's expecting to reach $10 billion for resale only in Australia in 2028. And as I said, it's very fragmented at the moment. So either you buy new and then you do have some options that are just not sustainable. And if you want to buy secondhand because you're getting better deals or because you actually want to do something good for the planet, it's super fragmented. It's old school marketplaces. You have to do all the work yourself. And then the interesting thing in the size of the market dynamic is interior designers. Australia is actually a big country for interior designers. There's 25,000 interior designers in Australia, and the market is supposed to be around $4 billion. And the interior designers in Australia are being super careful of what they buy for their customers. They are really, really putting a lot of effort into buying sustainable goods and also unique goods. So their goal is to impress their customers, having something unique for their homes and buying sustainable. So that's good for their own brands and amazing for their clients.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. And I know before you mentioned sort of a couple of competitors or a set like somewhere to buy, you know, furniture online similar to like a Facebook marketplace or something like that. But are there any like sort of direct competitors doing similar? And if there is, like, what's your unique value proposition?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that so Facebook has obviously been around for quite a while, but I talked about some of the challenges around that model. And I think, you know, we're definitely tapping into a market where people are sort of frustrated by that and looking for a new solution. There are definitely, you know, each of these sellers sort of sell on their own and they're kind of doing their own thing, building their brands, which are amazing. But obviously getting cut through in a market like that can be challenging, particularly for a smaller business. And so I think our kind of unique value proposition comes from being able to sort of offer that, you know, kind of seamless end-to-end purchasing journey in this space. And I think that's really a niche that's been, you know, typically really underserved, particularly in the resale market for many reasons, one of which is definitely the logistics side. And so to be able to deliver on this, I'd say sort of our two biggest differentiators or moats around, you know, how we really stand out. I think the first is our platform and our technology. So we actually do go beyond just connecting a buyer and a seller. You know, we were the first in market to offer integrated shipping solutions, and that's obviously huge given how much of a challenge and pain point it can be. We also make it easy for buyers and sellers to, you know, make offers automated through the platform. You can communicate and chat. Obviously, you have a lot of questions when it comes to pieces that are vintage and unique. You want more information. All payments go through the platform, so it actually feels really safe. And I think part of that is also consumers have just come to expect and almost demand this kind of really great e-com experience given everything that's out there. And so being able to replicate that so it feels really natural for them is a big competitive advantage for us. On the seller side, so on the supply side, we also, we also really wanted to understand what were their challenges and how can we make sure that we're addressing those. And so when you think about listing on multiple platforms and managing all of that, it actually becomes quite time consuming. And so with Bazaa, if you have an online store, you can essentially sync your store and all of your inventory in 2 clicks. And so that's saving, our sellers so much time. And so that's kind of our biggest differentiator on the supply side. And then, as you say, I mean, there are people doing this, there are brands building their brands. And so I'd say our sort of other kind of key value proposition is just the inventory and being able to bring those thousands and thousands of pieces in one home. And we've talked a lot about how fragmented it is, but we're essentially consolidating it into one place where buyers can actually browse. And so using really good advanced filters, searches makes it easy, whether you're looking for a style, an era, whatever it might be, being able to go to one place to find all of that. And so, yeah, our goal is very much to obviously keep pushing the limits and scaling Bazaa as much as possible, but without losing those moats and those differentiators that really make us stand out in the market.
Awesome. And then, so from that, like obviously you got sort of 2 different sides that you're sort of going after. What is the business model and how do you plan to make revenue?
So we're a pure marketplace platform. So the idea is really to be able to bring that online presence for the sellers. So those sellers, just to understand, they're pretty much brick and mortar stores, people passionate about vintage, about antique furniture, and they spend a lot of their time just sourcing those pieces, either from Europe or sourcing them directly in Australia and then bring them to their store. And the fact that we're online for them just gives them that access to the mass market. So we are a pure marketplace in the sense that we connect those great sellers either with their e-coms if they do have one, or directly importing their inventory. And then we're connecting them with buyers that are super willing to find those unique pieces. So we're a marketplace, we take 15% out of every sale, and we also deal with the logistics. So the buyer pays for the shipping upfront, and then we deal with the logistics. So that's kind of our model. Short term, long term, we also want to be a platform that allows professional buyers to have access to all of our pieces and help them do that. So we also plan on having a subscription fee for interior designers and professionals in order to have access to some stock upfront. And then we can also help them build their projects by sourcing sustainable goods. And our commission will vary from 15 to 20% depending on what kind of seller you are. And that's just in the future as well.
Awesome. And yeah, you've got like a lot of traction so far. It's, you're up and running, got monthly users and everything along the line. So what are some of the key milestones that you've achieved so far?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So sorry. Oh, yeah, I mean, we've been really excited about the milestone. So we launched I think you mentioned earlier, but we launched in March earlier this year. And so far our GMV growth has been, on average over 60% each month. And so what that means is we're actually currently on track to reach 1 million in annualized GMV in under 12 months, which obviously we're very proud of. From an average order value perspective, so currently we're sitting at over $750, which I think really does speak to kind of that high demand for those curated but high quality pieces in the market. And then from a user perspective, yeah, we've been seeing traffic grow, consistently. And so I think we're reaching now 40K monthly visitors. And the really exciting part is that they're also very engaged. And so what we're seeing our users do, we spend a lot of time browsing, exploring the platform, adding to wish list, adding to cart. And so we feel like there's a lot of movement and engagement in there, which obviously you want, highly engaged users. On the supply side, so our inventory has been growing as well. So we now have over 8,000 listings actually. And, we add more each week. So that number is constantly growing and giving buyers this kind of access to a range of options in one place. And then, yeah, I guess the piece we've been really excited about is definitely the response from media. So we've been featured in some sort of leading lifestyle publications, Marie Claire, Broadsheet, etc. And they've really positioned Bazaa as sort of this place and this premium destination for sustainable interiors. So I think what's really exciting and validating for us is just seeing that traction and that excitement in market from consumers, from media as well. So yeah, we've been really excited about our milestone so far.
Awesome. That's great. And like, obviously customers are growing. So what's customer acquisition look like? Like, what have you been doing so far? And yeah, look forward to hearing sort of how you're looking to acquire, you know, more customers moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess just like most businesses, we're definitely taking an approach of, you know, a mix of organic and paid strategies. So on the organic side, it's been really focused on two things. I'd say SEO and content so far. And so for SEO, our priority is really to target those kind of high impact keywords. So if you think about Bazaa, we're talking things like vintage furniture, retro furniture, you know, antique armchairs, etc. And so making sure that we're acquiring users who are actively searching for pieces that we have. And so that's been a really great way to bring in sort of this high intent traffic. And then content has been, definitely one of our other biggest priorities, is particularly for social media and in this space. You know, people use those channels for a lot of inspo. They love to follow, create a community. And so we've been really prioritizing creating sort of this like engaging and inspiring content that brings people together. But I'd say on that front, it's also not just about the traffic. It's actually about positioning Bazaa as sort of a leading voice in the space and just making sure that we're really credible and authentic in who we are. Because it's also a great way, I guess, to showcase the pieces we have. And so that ends up, you know, being quite an interesting conversion driving channel for us as well. And then I guess flipping to the paid side. So we've been testing Google and Meta. And so we've seen some really promising results on there. And it particularly, actually, quite interestingly, particularly on the higher ticket items. So our average order values tend to be higher, which is, I think, you know, leaves us a lot of room for potential upside as we sort of scale that channel over the coming months and years. And then I guess, yeah, when we talk about the channel and the funnel and marketing strategy, obviously at the top of that is brand awareness. And so I mentioned PR, but that's definitely been huge for us. And so having those kind of features in key publications have really helped us to build trust and credibility and bring some of that, you know, some of that community to us. Slightly maybe newer approach, kind of playing off the back of some of the trends we've seen. So we've started seeing some really interesting traction in the A&D, which is architect and designer space. So, you know, Tib mentioned the size of that market. And so we've seen, you know, some interesting inbound sort of work from there. And so one of the things where, you know, we've been thinking about investing in is really launching something where we're prioritizing or being able to outreach directly to that community and see if we can sort of build up that space as well, given how promising the kind of initial results have been there. So yeah, overall, our goal is very much to kind of keep fine-tuning that and scaling up the channels that are working for us. But I would say it's very much, you know, an evolving kind of media mix that's working for us at the moment.
Awesome. No, that sounds great. It's great to see like the growth so far, and like can definitely see it sort of growing more and more into the future. So it's great to hear. The next thing is just around capital raising. So what's been your journey so far? Have you raised capital before? And you know, if so, have you sort of used those funds?
Yeah, we raised pre-seed with high net worth angels and people in our network that believed in the project. We raised $650,000 pre-seed that allowed us to build an amazing tech and also build in parallel the supply as well. So as you know, when you're building a marketplace, you have the chicken and egg problem where you're trying to convince suppliers and sellers to be on your platform, but you just don't have buyers at the moment. So how do you convince one without having the other? And we've been lucky. We had some really amazing early adopters that really loved our tech, that found it super easy to use. And then that allowed us to launch in March 2024 with actually a good amount of supply, and then get slowly the scale in order to just bring the buyers in and have more and more sellers. So pre-seed investment allowed us to build our great tech, build a pool of amazing sellers, and just get traction for the first year of sales. So super happy with the way this has been spent. And the goal with this fundraise is to keep pushing. I mean, we are becoming kind of the go-to solution for all these sellers that actually some of them stop their e-commerce solution just to be on Bazaa because they want to focus on what they do well, which is sourcing great products, taking care of their customers in store, but they don't want to deal with the logistics. They don't want to deal with their e-commerce website. So we want to keep pushing this quite hard while building also a solution for interior designers, which we call a trade program. So interior designers will be able to just have access to the platform, get the stock in priority, so see the stock first, and then get our help also to be able to just build a great project through Bazaa. After that, the goal is to raise again. So we've been lucky in our previous journeys to we dealt with Australian VCs quite a lot. So the goal is to do seed with that round, push it a lot, keep pushing the traction, build a mobile app as well, and then do Series A with Australian VCs. And some of them have already very strong appetite and are waiting for us for that round.
Awesome. It's super exciting. I guess from here, like, you guys have achieved so much so far, and great horizon on ahead, and just wondering what sort of major risks and challenges that you foresee potentially affecting the business.
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think Tib probably touched on one of the ones that, it's always a challenge for a marketplace, which is that, that chicken and egg cold start problem. How do you track buyers without supply? How do you track supply without potential sales? And so, we aligned really early on that we would be a supply-led marketplace. And so I think just having those rich conversations with our sellers just really meant that they put their value and trust in us, and we were able to build that. I'd say, we were lucky enough to be able to launch, with a really good level of supply, and then grow that as we grew our demand at the same time. For us, it's making sure we're still able to continue both of those, both the supply and the demand side dynamics of that marketplace. And just making sure we're constantly bringing in really great inventory to the platform. I'd say another big one is probably, at the moment we're obviously managing and organizing all of the logistics, and we're talking about, large, delicate, unique, one-of-one pieces. And so what we sort of, really want to make sure that we're ensuring is that our logistics partners can also keep up with the demand and the scale at which we're kind of growing in without compromising on any of that quality of service. And so, that's really on us to make sure that we're building strong relationships with really reliable couriers, and then also looking at and exploring sort of tech solutions that could help us, with better tracking, better transparency around those deliveries. And so just making sure we're kind of building that solution around it to mitigate any of, that risk. And then I'd say the other one for me is probably, the secondhand and resale space is a big opportunity. And so just, I think, from our perspective, we've talked a little bit about our competitive advantages and our moats, and just making sure that all the stuff that sets us apart, we're really constantly refining and improving that experience for our users, and we don't ever lose that kind of edge, particularly given that, it's a hot space. And so prioritizing that, I think, is going to be a really key one for us going forward.
Awesome. And yeah, for the investors, like something that comes up a lot with investors sort of asking this question, like, what are the long-term goals, and what's a potential future exit look like?
I'm on mute, sorry. We are, sorry for that. So we are very ambitious with this project. We want to become the #1 household name for sustainable interiors in Australia. And that, in order to achieve that, we need to push very, very hard. We really want basically consumers to have a very strong alternative and a better alternative to buying new. So at the moment, if you go online, it's mostly fast furniture, stuff that has been manufactured overseas, mostly in Asia, and then it's shipped here, and it's really not eco-friendly at all. It's really not unique at all. And it's also not very well built most of the time. So we want to offer that really sustainable quality solution at a good price and offer an amazing e-commerce experience for something that is actually super fragmented in the marketplace. So that takes a lot of smart technology as well and really good ops. So the goal is to push this hard, go through a couple of fundraising rounds, and our goal is in 5 years to reach $100 million in sales. And at that point, consider IPO and start being smart and getting a good advice, to IPO at 100 million sales. So that's kind of our goal. We're pushing very hard for it. We love the traction so far, and we're pretty sure we're going to nail it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, thank you both for your time today. It was great to find out all about Bazaa. For any investors watching this, if you're interested to find out more or express interest in the raise, after listening to the Q&A, you can find the expression of interest page listed on the VentureCrowd website at venturecrowd.com.au and visiting the Venture Capital tab. So that's all for today, but thank you both for your time, and it was great to dive deeper into Bazaa and everything that you guys are doing. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.